Now, a new book claims that long before Abu Ghraib became a household name, the US military and the CIA used torture with impunity at home and abroad. It says billions of dollars were spent refining and teaching these techniques during the Cold War, and that after the 9/11 attacks on New York and Washington, they were revived for use on what the Bush administration calls enemy combatants. Well, the book is called American Torture. Its author is Michael Otterman, and he joins us now. What sort of methods do you think they're using?
Well, currently, depends what we're talking about. The FBI uses nonviolent rapport-building techniques that build trust and don't violate any human rights. The military has scaled back the use of what I call torture, extreme sensory deprivation, sexual humiliation, things like that, since the Abu Ghraib images were leaked, and especially since the Hamdan Supreme Court decision, which ruled that all enemy combatants must be treated along the guidelines of Common Article 3. Since then, they've scaled back these harsh techniques. The CIA right now is awaiting further instruction from the Department of Justice about just how tough they could go. But the danger is the way the U.S. Defines torture under the law. Methods like waterboarding, where you lay someone down on a board, you fill their mouth with water. This is a medieval torture used for centuries. Are arguably legal under U.S. law.
Well, and the Americans always say, don't they, what we're doing is not torture.
Well, that's the key thing. When Bush comes up and speaks on this issue, the first thing he says, we do not torture, that's not what we do. But what you have to realize is the way the U.S. defines torture, techniques like extended sensory deprivation, standing for long periods of time, don't technically classify torture under U.S. law, while they would easily under the way, say, the UN defines it.
In your book, I think you're saying the roots of all this go back an awful long way. We have to look back to more or less the Second World War and its aftermath.
Oh, that's right. I mean, my book picks up starting in the early 1950s when there was a fear, or at least it was used as an excuse to study the techniques of, say, Communist China, Soviet Russia, what the interrogation methods they were using. And after millions of dollars of research and some years, they essentially determined that it's the psychological methods, like I said, standing someone up, hooding them, humiliating them, which after a period of weeks, months, they're almost willing to sign anything.
Well, I've heard as well, the playing of loud music, for example.
Oh, that's used quite, yeah, that's been used quite widely. And I just want to mention, while these things go on abroad, they also go on within the U.S. in what are now called SEER schools, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape schools, which actually train special forces soldiers to endure these types of things in case they're ever captured in real life.
And can they ever be effective, these methods? There's a lot of discussion, isn't there, about whether if you torture someone, the information you get is really useful.
Well, that's what the history shows that I lay out in my book, that it's not useful at all. Under torture, you know, I would say during the Inquisition, under torture, people would admit to wild things, you know, sleeping with the devil and things, crazy stuff. And the same thing applies today, because these methods are torture. I mentioned before the FBI uses a different set of techniques, nonviolent techniques, where they build trust and they offer incentives, nonviolent incentives. And it's been proven, not only in criminal cases, but in terrorism cases as well, that these actually provide more accurate information, more intelligence. And that's partly why I've written the book, to advocate a change in policy.
Maybe that's one reason as well. It's not just the legal position. Maybe that's one reason why the American military are also scaling back. Maybe they've realized that.
Yeah, well, if you speak to an experienced interrogator, someone who's been in situations and observed these types of things, experienced people will tell you it's not the torture that works. It's building trust and giving incentives that actually gets you the most reliable information that could actually help save lives.
We've just got a few seconds left. Do you think they'll ever abandon this altogether in the United States?
The danger is the Bush administration in particular has opened such a wide gap and a gray area in the way torture is defined that even if it's scaled back now, there's always a danger it could come back again.
Fascinating. Michael Otterman, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.